All right, so LSU baseball is behind us now. Off season really kind of hitting us here as the summer's going to be long here in South Louisiana. I don't know if we've had this much time to really kind of talk and get ready for football season as we will have over the next couple of months.
We kind of had the same thing in 2022 when they lost the Southern Miss.
Was that in the Super?
No, it was just,
I think that was a Super. That was in Hattiesburg. Yeah. That was a Hattiesburg Super. Yeah.
So we got an extra week of content.
We got an extra week. But now, yes, barreling down the alley of football season. I believe we're under 90 days away. We're just under 3 months here before LSU is going to open the season versus Southern California.
Don't tell Lincoln Riley that.
Right, Lincoln Riley woke up. There's a Baton Rouge podcast saying that they're playing South Carolina on the opening game. Like, no, Lincoln. Go back to bed. You're playing them. Yeah. You're going to have to play them.
You got to pull up in Vegas too, buddy.
You got to play them, buddy. So, I guess we can do like some standard like depth chart radio. We can start looking at position groups if you want for LSU football. Is that something that you guys would be open to, the listening audience, if you're out there? Just give me some feedback. I mean, we can go down and start breaking down the roster. I mean, I'm not scared of it. It's some old school AM style sports talk radio we can start getting into if we want to start breaking down position groups. But I think obviously LSU is kind of in the heart of recruiting right now in this offseason. They've got a couple of more. I believe the elite camp is coming up here.
It should be
pretty soon, which is always
is that open?
Time.
Is that open door?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You just walk in and
absolutely
set the scene.
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah, I'll go get some
there.
content there.
Yeah, dude.
Go get some content, and ask some questions, see where everything's at.
I would imagine they would have some big dogs.
Yeah,
at this one,
especially
with this recruiting cycle.
I know Jakeem Stewart was at the O-line D-line camp, which was last week. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm sure you'll see who's who at the elite skill camp.
Let me get the date on that.
Sure, Underwood will be in town
because that's the camp that we saw Wiggins and Campbell going at each other.
But LSU has a defensive line target that will be visiting first and then announcing on June 29th, Xavier Okponu from Denton Guyer. So, I mean, you get some D-line news early in the summer. He said LSU is definitely the top choice right now. So, I mean, Bo Davis is already doing work. You're already seeing some return on that investment in the 25 class. You'll probably get 5 to 6 defensive linemen in this class. So LSU fans will be happy where the defensive line sits next season, not this season.
LSU Elite Camp 1 starts tomorrow on campus at LSU, which is open to players at all positions. Elite camps will be on June 6th, and then on June 13th, there is another Elite Camp which I believe is the invite only. Or that's the one where they hand out the invites. Now, at both elite camps, there is big-time prospects. So it is, it's always a great atmosphere. It's always a fantastic event because you've got, high-level coaching happening, and you can see who the coaching staff is paying the most attention to. You can see who they're coaching up. This is a real opportunity for, think about this in recruiting. If you're recruiting, if you're ahead of your organization, your corporation, your business, if you're overseeing that, and it's your responsibility to bring new talent in, and, the closest you can get to this new talent is just by going and watching them perform and then talking to them outside of their performance stage, like, at school or, while they're dressed casually. At the camp, you've got an opportunity to have a whistle standing over these guys, getting in their ear, coaching them up, and really showing them, hey, if you come to LSU, this is the style of coaching that you will get. So if Bo Davis likes a defensive line prospect at this elite camp tomorrow, he's going to get after him like he's coaching Jacoby and Guillory, right? Like he's going to show him what it's like to be a part. Now, he may not, MF him up and down if he makes a mistake because he's recruiting him, but he's going to show him what his personality is like to play for. And, more than anything at these elite camps, I think that is the most valuable piece that these coaches are able to really put in to what used to be a couple of days. Now LSU, I think, has gotten smart and just running these camps on one-day events. I took Little Jay to the youth camp last week, and they ran it from 2 o'clock until 8 o'clock. Yep. I mean, I told the coach that was checking me, it's genius.
In and out.
I mean, they had 1st through 6th graders there, 8 a.m. until noon. They took a 2-hour break, got rested, ate lunch, and brought the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in there for the afternoon and through the evening and night. And not only that, like Lil Jay was like, it was cool playing underneath the lights, like on the practice field. And
it is.
The weather got cooler, playing outside the sun. So, they're just running these camps on one-day events, which I think is really smart. Yeah. Once you start having to house people and feed people and worry about people's, like sign off, it's a mess.
Yeah, I went to the LSU camp it was my sophomore year going to my junior year. And it was an overnight camp, and it was fun. It's just like a lot. Like you could tell, like they were doing a lot to keep everything rolling. Like you got to get people from the dorms to football ops. Like it was just a lot. Like you could tell,
right.
Like them going to a 1-day camp is just like, all right, we're gonna get all of this done in one day. All the scouting and evals. You don't need to take 4 days or 3 days to see how good a kid is.
Agreed.
That was the old Les Miles era, though. So, less like to
just make it difficult, boys.
Stretch it out.
How hard can we do this?
Then he gave us like this long speech at the end about it.
Meant nothing.
Like thanking our parents, like going and give our parents a kiss. It was just very, very strange.
Weird.
Strange.
Motivational Miles, man. All right, let's do it, man. Let's get into this football roster. And let's start looking at it, and we'll start talking about it daily. And, hopefully we'll have some updates from these elite camps on where LSU is looking next. But, you got some really talented positions, right? Like, LSU football has, we talked about it yesterday, offensively turned into this almost, offensive kind of approached school. It's crazy to see how the paradigm has flipped on LSU so quickly. And we referenced yesterday, really it starts with the 2019 team, where now from the 2019 team, you've got the highest paid quarterback in the NFL in Joe Burrow. You've got the highest paid wide receiver / non-quarterback position player in Justin Jefferson, who inked his deal with Minnesota earlier this week. And then next year, you'll break another record when Jamar Chase signs his deal. So, that 2019 team is really proving on why they have had such an impact on the offensive side of the ball when you just look at what's happening to them inside of the negotiating room, within their own NFL franchises. There is no negotiation. It's all one-sided. Those guys are saying, I want the highest paid contract. And there's nothing that the team can say. They're like, if we want to keep him, we got to pay him. The same thing's going to happen for Chase. And that has opened the floodgates on this offensive movement at LSU. And when you look at the 2024 edition of the LSU offense, to me, you are walking out the best offensive line that LSU has fielded in my lifetime. And there has been some good ones. That 2003 national championship team that had Rodney Reed, Nate Livings, Andrew Whitworth was as solid of an offensive line as you'll find, and probably up there as one of the greats. But when you look at this offensive line and who they bring back and the depth that they have now developed at this crew with this unit, man, LSU's offensive line going into the season is and probably will be the best offensive line in college football. Got to stay healthy. Got to catch the break. But They have built a ton of depth where they will be able to sustain. I mean, look, by no means am I saying you can lose Campbell or Jones ever. Ever. I'm just saying that they've got guys behind at all positions that they feel like if they lose, next man up, it's a real next man up mentality. There's some guys out there, Campbell, who is, projected in some circles to be the number 1 overall pick. I mean, do people understand this at this point? That Will Campbell is a top 3. I mean, LSU is going to have another top 3 pick. Campbell stays healthy and just plays Will Campbell football. He'll be on the board 15 minutes next year in Green Bay, where the draft is held, which is weird. And Emory Jones is not going to have to wait much longer. If he has the same type of year that he's had the previous 2, stays healthy, everything works out, he shouldn't have to wait long to hear his name come off the draft board. So you're talking about potentially maybe 2 top 10 picks, at the very minimum 2 top 20 picks. Both those guys will be off the board within the top 20 of next year's NFL draft. So we know about Campbell and Jones, and there's not much more we can say other than they are the best 2 offensive tackles in college football. Then you start to get to the other guys on the offensive line. And I believe that Miles Frazier and Garrett Dellinger are kind of lost in this and almost forgotten to a degree because of how dominant Jones and Campbell are, right? I mean, just the lore, those 2 take up a lot of the attention in the room. Garrett Dellinger and Miles Frazier are just as solid at their position for who they are. They're just as reliable. They are just as dependable as those guys on the outside have become. And in Dellinger's case, he's almost as solid of a pro prospect. I'm not saying he's a top 20 pick. I'm saying he's a guy that a lot of NFL a lot of NFL scouts know about. So I believe that LSU's probably got 3, top 2 round picks on the offensive line when you're talking about Jones, Campbell, and Dellinger. And who knows where Miles Frazier will go just by being able to play SEC football now for his 3rd year, going into year 3, and playing it at the level that he has. I will be completely honest and transparent by saying I didn't think that Miles Frazier was going to be able to hold his job last season because Lance Hurd was just going to be a guy that they had to get on the field. I was wrong. Frazier was a guy you couldn't take off. Frazier was the guy that was the most consistent. I mean, even when they bumped Emory Jones down, there was some growing pains for him there. And Frazier has been solid. So I as much as I love the outside, and as like I said, these are the best 2 offensive tackles that LSU has had in my lifetime on the field together. The interior is as rugged and solid with Dellinger and Frazier. I think those 2 are very underrated and maybe not undervalued. I think the value of those 2 guys you can feel when you talk to Brian Kelly or you hear Brad Davis speak about the group. I think there's definitely some value there. I think from our standpoint, there's just, look, like we said, Jones and Campbell going to get a lot of the attention. They deserve it. Frazier and Dellinger inside are just as they are just as good. DJ Chester is the guy who's coming in as the new face, right? He was a freshman last season. He played some spot time, and you could feel it. You could feel that there was some momentum behind him. There was kind of a wave behind him of a guy that was going to be tough to keep off the field, right? I mean, it's probably the easiest way to say it. At some point, they were going to have to find, a spot for him. And to me, the second most vital position on the field is the center position. I think because, like we say, the quarterback touches the ball every play. He touches the ball every play from the center, right? And for him to be in that spot so young I think is, says a lot about him. It says a lot about where he is as a football player. And, talking to the coaching staff, I'm trying to, why can I not pull up the center from last year?
Charles
Turner. And, there was a lot of, when Charles Turner elected to go and announced that he was leaving early for the NFL draft, some people were kind of scratching their head on, wait, what do you mean? Well, how high of a draft pick is Turner going to be? And I don't think necessarily it was about whether or not he wanted to come back. I think he was looking over his shoulder thinking, man, I may need to go to the league to play. Right? And I think Charles Turner he signed with the New England Patriots as a free agent. But moreover, I think he was kind of looking back and seeing, it was kind of like the Stephen Ridley effect. Ridley in 2010 was solid, all SEC type running back. In 2011, he was looking at the depth chart and he was like, man, here comes Spencer Ware, Michael Ford, Kenny Hilliard's coming in here. At that point, they still had Jeremy Hill, committed to that class. He was like, I need to go to the league to get my touches. And that is where Charles Turner was in thinking, here comes DJ Chester. And so we'll see. Chester's going to move into a full-time starting role here with the offensive line at the center position. And, not only that, I'm hearing he has a freshman backing him up. I think there was a lot of high hopes coming out of spring on Caden Eccles, who LSU flipped from Texas A&M late in the process and who has come in and been able to embrace the role of potentially maybe here to start either a backup center or maybe a guy that gets into some competition here with DJ Chester. So it will be interesting to see. And then, more than that, as excited as we are about the front line of the offensive line, I got to be honest, I'm just as excited about some of the backups. And I mentioned Caden Eccles, and I think Eccles is going to be a really good prospect, and obviously under Brad Davis is a guy that is going to have a chance to develop under one of the best. But these two tackles on the outside, I have heard some really, really good stuff about both Tyjee Adams and Bo Bordelon. And, it is a hell of a luxury. I got to be honest, it's a hell of a luxury because this is something that LSU has not had for a long time is, the luxury of true offensive tackles. Somebody that is a true tackle. They've always had to convert somebody. But now, it's like they have 4 legitimate college football offensive tackles on the roster, developing, and in this cycle of playing that really plays out perfect. If Tyjee Adams and Bo Bordelon can go through this season where Emory Jones and Will Campbell play dominant football, don't get hurt, and then it's their time next year, you're handing the baton off to 2 experienced, not experienced on the field, but at least experienced within the program guys where they're much more physically fit. They're much more mentally ready to take on that role. It's not as if you're looking at a freshman or redshirt guy and saying, hey, now you got to go. Now you got to take it. It's your time to take over. And that's a heck of a luxury, man. It feels like the offensive line is in good hands for the next 5-6 years. And in college sports, that is an eternity. Especially, I guess, now when you're living in the NIL world where everything's year to year. But, just as far as their roster, their room, their depth chart of the offensive line goes, we're not even talking about guys like Paul Mubanga, who they absolutely love out of Georgia, and the class coming in this year, right? That we mentioned. So it's a great time right now with the offensive line. It is as good of an offensive line room as I can ever recall, and it has got to be, without question, the deepest. I mean, it's just it's player after player after player after player. I mean, how many 5-stars they have coming in? Weston Davis is a 5-star. I mean, he's an offensive tackle, and he's a scary prospect. I mean, if you look up his basketball highlights, he's a freak. I mean, really. I mean, he's a freak athlete of somebody who's just got great hand-eye. He's got great athleticism. You can see the explosion in his jumping ability. You know, I mean, it's...
Signed 2 5-stars. Trades Green and Weston Davis.
Cryer's already transferred. He saw it. I mean, Joseph Cryer got in here and was like, "Ha, brother, this ain't Natchitoches Central anymore.
I'm out."
I mean, this is not Manny High School. I mean, this looks like the Raiders. So, I mean, the offensive line is in a great spot, man. It is in a fantastic spot.